Chapter 15. Fu Jing Zhou, let me show you what it truly means to have nothing. In the office. As Su Wan spoke, Fu Jing Zhou's body stiffened for a moment, seizing this opportunity. Su Wan exerted all her strength to break free from his grasp. She walked quickly to the door and pointed outside. Get out. Fu Jing Zhou's gaze looked complexly at the young girl standing by the door. He stepped forward, and his aura, just like his current unpredictable expression, felt like every step was stepping on people's hearts, causing uneasiness. Fu Jingzhou stopped just one step away from her. The gentleness deliberately shown on his face had vanished. Only a gloominess remained between his eyebrows. Emotions in his eyes were as cold as ice shards. Xiaoqi, you should know. Even if you don't divorce him, I have a way to make the Lu family give up on you. Also, Wan Ci, you need to consider carefully. If you defy me again, if you're not obedient, the matter of your parents causing deaths due to embezzlement and favoritism will be spread through the media. Su Wan sneered, threatening me. Fu Jingzhou, I have nothing now. What else can you use to control me? Nothing. Fu Jingzhou enunciated these words and clenched his fingers. Is that so? Before he finished speaking, he suddenly moved forward. He grabbed her arm and kicked the door shut with one foot. Then, he pressed Su Wan against the door. Xiaoqi, I'm going to show you what it truly means to have nothing. With that, he lowered his head abruptly and was about to forcefully kiss her while restraining her struggling hands. Su Wan gritted her teeth and struggled with all her might. Several times, he couldn't find her lips. Fu Jingzhou narrowed his eyes, and a hint of anger emerged. He held her chin, forcing her to raise her head, just as his lips were about to touch hers. Su Wan suddenly opened her mouth and bit down. She bit hard with precision. Almost in the next moment, drops of fresh blood fell. Fu Jingzhou's lips were bitten deeply, and Su Wan's lips were stained with a drop of blood as well. Fu Jingzhou's movements froze, and in that moment of shock, Su Wan forcefully pushed him away. Immediately afterward, a slap landed on her face. Fu Jingzhou turned his head, his tongue touching his burning cheek. The atmosphere instantly turned deathly silent and tense. At that moment, a knocking sound came from outside the door. Following that, a solemn, yet affectionate voice could be heard. Wan, are you there? Come to my office. Grandpa Lin has something to tell you. The person who arrived was Lin Angwo, the director of Hualien Hospital. Su Wan wiped away the bloodstain from her lips with disgust and said, Yes, Grandpa Lin, I'll be there right away. Su Wan didn't look at Fu Jingzhou again. She just opened the door. Outside the door, Lin Angwo was still there. As soon as the door opened, he saw the man inside. Lin Angwo was in his 60s, but he was still full of vigor and vitality, having led an honest and upright life. He had a kind heart and had helped countless people. Back in the day, Su Wan's parents, Su Zheng and Zu Yanzhen, were the two most outstanding academicians under his wing. Unfortunately, fate was envious of their talents. They died early in the line of duty, leaving behind their 15-year-old daughter, lonely in the world. Back then, Lin Angwo had intended to take care of Su Wan and protect her as she grew up. But Fu Jingzhou had acted faster and took her abroad. Director's office. Lin Angwo reopened the contract that Su Wan had signed when she joined Hualien Hospital. He discreetly pulled out a piece of paper from a hidden clause in the contract and handed it to Su Wan. Wan, take a look at this. Su Wan took it, and it was a breach of contract agreement. However, Su Wan looked at the last two lines, which clearly stated, if within 3 years, you unilaterally breach the contract with Hualien Hospital and wish to terminate the employment agreement, you will need to pay 20 times the penalty. Half a month ago, to bring her over, Hualien Hospital paid 50 million, so 20 times. That would be 10 billion. When Su Wan initially signed the contract, she hadn't noticed this clause. Today, while Lin Angwo was reviewing Su Wan's contract, he happened to come across it. Upon closer inspection, he realized that this breach of contract agreement was obviously a trap. Wan, a $10 billion breach of contract agreement. This is clearly a setup. Lin Angwo sighed with self-reproach. This is my fault. I thought keeping you by my side would provide better care. But I never expected things to turn out like this. Su Wan's emotions remained relatively calm. She handed the breach of contract agreement back to Lin Engwu and said, "Grandpa Lin, you don't need to blame yourself. Even if it weren't for you, someone else would have done this." Since Fu Jing Zhou had decided to make a move on her, he wouldn't hold back. Otherwise, a week ago, he wouldn't have waited until she signed the contract with Hualien Hospital to reveal his true intentions. The 3-year contract with Hualien Hospital and its steep penalty were enough to keep her restrained for at least 3 years, preventing her from leaving Xiang City. And she would be unable to free herself from his control. Grandpa Lin, I want to ask you, what does due to official duties mean regarding my parents' deaths 8 years ago? At that time, she only knew that both her parents had died in Hualien Hospital. But she didn't know the details of what had happened. She had asked many people, and all of them told her the same answer. Her parents were heroes, and they died in the line of duty. However, no one was willing to tell her the full story of what had happened. Listening to Su Wan's words, a struggle flashed in Lin Engwu's eyes. After hesitating for a couple of seconds, he merely said, Wan, you are a strong child. You just need to remember that your parents lived their lives to save others. They died for the country and its people. They are martyrs, truly deserving heroes. That's enough. Su Wan wanted to know the truth, but Lin Engwu continued, Wan, I understand your heart. But when we lack the ability to protect ourselves, knowing too much will only lead us into endless danger and self-doubt. Everything that happened 8 years ago, when the time is right, someone will tell you. With his words, Su Wan decided not to inquire further. Lin Engwu thought about the scene he had witnessed between Su Wan and Fu Jing Zhou in room 308 earlier and looked at the hefty breach of contract agreement in front of him. He sighed deeply and asked, Child, what are your plans now? Su Wan lowered her gaze and replied, After things settled down in Xiang City, I plan to go back abroad. Lin Engwu didn't try to dissuade her. That's a good choice. He looked out the window. One's homeland is indeed a hometown, a harbor for many people. But if all you've experienced here is pain and suffering, it's better to go abroad. Although you might not know many familiar faces there, at least you can escape these difficulties.